Hi guys, so I'm here with my reading wrap up for September. I had quite a good reading month. Like I read 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I read 8 books. And I did, for the most part, I enjoyed everything that I read. I don't think there was anything that I read that I hated. But at the same time, there wasn't anything that I read that I can say anything new that I've read, I should say, to clarify, that I absolutely loved and is a brand new favourite, but I didn't do too badly. So the first book that I read was on my Kindle, and that was The Guernsey Literary and Potato Peel Pie Society by Marianne Schaefer, I think. I really did enjoy this book. I did the cardinal sin and I watched the movie before I read the book, and in a way I'm kind of glad that I did, because I absolutely loved the movie. I think it's probably one of my favourite films of this year. I find it really, really endearing, and I've said previously, like I'm quite familiar with the Channel Islands. I visited the Channel Islands, so I knew a bit of their history anyway. So I really, really enjoyed the film, and then I read the book, and I did enjoy the book, but it's written solely in letter form, which I've read books similar, like I think it's Boy Meets Girl by Meg Cabot, but that's written in email form. So I have read books like that and have loved them. The only thing with this is that I feel like where I'd watched the movie, it allowed me to sort of follow the plot a little bit, even though there are some differences between the book and the movie. I feel like if I hadn't seen the movie first, I feel like I might have felt a bit lost. And as well, where it's all written in letters, the letters are almost a little bit unbelievable because they're so detailed, and such said this and said this, that I feel like some of the letters go on a bit, and it's a little bit like they don't feel like genuine letters, they don't almost ring true. And I still enjoyed the plot. It was very, very similar to the movie. There wasn't many differences. There were a few, but not many. And I did enjoy it. I gave it 3 out of 5, but I just feel like the formatting of it almost sort of took away from it a little bit for me. Still really, really enjoyed it, would still recommend it, but I think in this, in the rare instance, I think I preferred the movie to the book. So the next book that I read was 4-Letter Word by J. Daniels. I read a lot of her books, I think, not last month, the month before. I started reading, the first J. Daniels book I read was actually Bad For You, which is the 3rd book in this series, so I've read them out of sync. And I really, really enjoyed this one. It's about Sydney and Brian. They kind of meet by chance when she rings the wrong number, and they start sort of a communication, texting and talking to each other. They don't actually know each other, but they get to know each other. And they don't realise how close they live, and then they sort of fall for each other before they meet each other. But Brian has a secret that he's holding that sort of threatens their relationship. It's really, really good. Really quite sexy but funny. Really, really enjoyable sort of contemporary sort of romance novel. I'm really, really enjoying J. Daniels' books. I think I really enjoyed her Alabama Summer series, but there were some books in that book that in that series that I enjoyed more than others, and I think it will be the same case for this Dirty Deed series. Bad For You, I think I preferred that a little bit more than this one, but I mean, I have read them out of order, but I do think Bad For You was just so good. This one, wasn't bad, but Bad For You had the edge, I think. So, but I gave this one 4 out of 5. The next book that I read was Brew Mead by Christina Lauren. This is the first Christina Lauren book that I've read. I've seen, a lot of her books around Goodreads, Instagram, etc. I think she's the author of the Beautiful Bastard series, which I have not read. Like I said, this is the first book of hers that I have read. And I enjoyed it, but I didn't love it. I I don't know if I was expecting to love it. I don't know, because it's not an author that I know. So, you know, I didn't really know what I was expecting going in. And I didn't dislike it, but I didn't love it either. It's about this girl. I can't even remember her name now. I can't remember either of their names. But it's about this woman, and she kind of feels a little bit lost in her life. She feels like she should be doing more than what she is. She's got a degree. She wants to be a writer, but she doesn't know what she wants to write about. So she's kind of working for her uncle in this theatre. It's kind of like she feels like a made-up job, like he's gotten her that job basically. And she is kind of semi in love with a busker that she has named in her head Jack. She doesn't actually know his name. And she goes out of her way to see him perform. She doesn't need to take the subway to work, but she sort of goes sort of on a roundabout trip just so she can see him. And then one night she sort of plucks up the courage to speak to him, and then it sort of all goes wrong, and she ends up getting sort of attacked, and not by him but by someone else. And anyway, their lives sort of coincide, and she wants him to go work for her uncle, but then it turns out like he can't because he's sort of there illegally. So then she basically offers to marry him. This is all on the blurb basically, it's not a spoiler. And then obviously they sort of supposedly fall for each other, but she doesn't know if it's real or if it's acting for his you know, green card, etc, etc. And it was just all right. I didn't actually really feel any chemistry between the characters, and the sort of drama and everything in it, I didn't know if it was believable or not. I never really was sure of his feelings for her. I still don't think that was resolved very well. For me, it was just alright, and I gave it 3 out of 5. The next book that I read was The You I've Never Known by Ellen Hopkins. I've not read a lot of Ellen Hopkins, but what I have read I really, really loved. And this was not a bad book. It's quite a beast, but where it's written in verse, it's not as big as it looks, kind of thing. It was a good book. It was about a young girl who's struggling kind of with her identity even before a huge sort of lie and secret is revealed about her, and who she actually is. She's struggling, you know, is she gay, is she bi? You know, her mum supposedly left her dad high and dry and left for another woman, and left Ariel, didn't want to know her, so she struggles. She knows that if she is bi or she is gay, then her dad is basically probably going to disown her, because he makes his sort of misogynistic and his views very, very well known. He's kind of, you know, chauvinist, kind of a racist. So she's already struggling before this bombshell is dropped, that actually everything she's been told about herself and about her family is a lie. So I really, really sort of liked that. Ariel I kind of struggle with, because as much as she's struggling with all of this, I don't think that it was as deep as it should have been. I didn't feel as much for her as I feel like I should have done. She almost felt kind of one-dimensional in a way. This cover, while it's beautiful, I don't think this is a representation of Ariel. Not that, you know, that's the be all and end all, but you know. But yeah, I would recommend it, but I don't think it was as high as the standard of Burned by Ellen Hopkins. So yeah, I gave this one 3 out of 5. The next book that I read was The Luck of the Bride by Jenna McGregor. This is the 3rd book, I think, in the Caversham Heiresses series. It's, you know, a historical Regency romance series, which is, you know, very much something that I enjoy. I've read the previous 2 books in this series, and I think that each book is kind of getting better in a way, with her writing, because I mean, she is, you know, a new author, and I really, really enjoyed this one. I thought it was really, really good, but towards the end something sort of happens where the hero of the novel doubts the heroine, which can happen, but he almost turns on her, and it's almost quite vicious, and there's the last 20% is a lot of it, even right up to the end really, of him kind of not believing her, and believing that she's this terrible person and this thief, but I think his sort of doubting of her is quite cruelly done, and goes on, I think, for quite a long time, and it kind of made me hate him a little bit. Now obviously with this genre there's lots of love to hate and enemies to lovers type story, but everything for them was going really quite well, and then it almost flipped it, like it normally starts with hate to love, but this went to love to hate, and then I felt like and she forgave him very quickly as well, which, yeah, I mean, it was going so well, I was loving it, it was going to become a favourite in this genre, until that last 20% where she made me hate him. And I mean, he is forgiven, but I don't forgive him. I wouldn't have forgiven him that quickly. But anyway, after that I read the next book in that series, which is The Good, the Bad and the Duke by Jana McGregor. And this was available on NetGalley. I really enjoyed this one as well. It brings together characters that we've seen earlier on in the series, sort of get their own story. And this one, I think I enjoyed that a little bit more, and I would have given it 3.5 out of 5. Again, Regency romance type novel, but I did really enjoy it. The next book that I read was a reread for me, and that's The Fault in Our Stars by John Green. And not only did I sort of, reread the book, but I re-listened to the audio. This is the second time that I've listened to this audio version, and this is the version that's actually read by John Green himself. And I don't know if you can still get this or how you can get hold of it, but I got it when it came out from like dftba.com, because I think the normal audio version isn't read by him. I think this is like a special edition, but if you can get hold of it, like I've said before, like, it's brilliant to hear him read his own book, and as you guys know, like, The Fault in Our Stars is one of my all-time favourites. It's brilliant, and I thought it was, past time that it was due for a reread. Obviously 5 out of 5 stars. And then the last book that I read was Caught by the Scot by Karen Hawkins. This is another, historical romance type novel. Karen Hawkins is one of my favourites now. I was introduced to her not that long ago, I think last year or the year before. And this is the first book in a new series by her, and it revolves around, I think, 3 brothers that have basically, their sister, who was very dear to them and pretty much raised them, passes away, and she stipulates basically that she wants them to marry, and marry well, otherwise their inheritance will go to their sworn enemies. And obviously they're all up in arms about this. And then this is the first brother's book, Connor, and he doesn't want to marry. He is off sailing the seas, privateering, loves the sea, doesn't want to be stuck at home with a wife, basically. So he thinks, perfect, he knows exactly who he'll marry. He'll marry his best friend's sister, Theodora, who, would be quite happy, basically, to marry him. She'd consider it great, will be happy to stay at home tending to the garden while he's off sailing. So he goes to find her and has actually found that she's eloped with somebody else, which he just can't believe. So then he tracks her down and says, marry me instead. And she's like, no. And it transpires that Thea has actually been in love with Connor for years and years and years, but he has never noticed her, never paid her any attention, and she's decided that it's time to forget her feelings about him and move on with her life. So it was really, really good. I really enjoyed it. Not my favourite of hers though. I've enjoyed her like Mad for the Play series. I'm not quite sure what it's actually called. Much more than I enjoyed this one, but this was still really, really enjoyable, and I gave it 3.5 out of 5. So that's everything that I read for this month, guys. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you all soon. Happy reading.